Filming for Fallout Season 2 officially kicked off in Los Angeles in November 2024, and the excitement is already building. Jonathan Nolan, co-creator and executive producer, has teased the second season, saying it'll take viewers deeper, darker, and into all the nooks and crannies of the Fallout universe, suggesting a much more immersive experience by pulling in elements from the video game series. And thanks to recent set leaks, we've got a vague inside look at what's to come. And those of us who are fans of Fallout New Vegas are looking forward to it due to the recent hype. If you guys don't want any spoilers for the next season of the show, I would probably try to avoid this video. So consider yourself warned from this point on. We'll be diving into set leaks like we said before, and also some confirmed casting and rumors. But if you're into that stuff, then you're in the right place, and maybe consider subscribing for more Fallout in the future.
One of the most exciting reveals is the confirmed major setting, the vibrant, chaotic, and ever-iconic city of New Vegas itself. And it's not just hinted at this point. Multiple set leaks have showcased some unmistakable landmarks we know and love from the game. In recent weeks, we saw photos well up of the Freeside East Gate, a rough entry point known as the gateway to one of the most diverse and troubled neighborhoods of New Vegas. In the game, Freeside was home to mercenaries, gamblers, and gangs, and this is the entry point from the game right here, with the heavy shuffle of colorful square boards overarching the entry point. With the leaked photos, we get to see the backside of this entry point that looks like a rundown urban entrance. It's hard to tell how close the sign will be to the game's version, but just based on the shape, it looks extremely similar. We only get a shot of the backside. Plus, the other signs that we will get to are almost identical to the game's version, and I seriously applaud them for it. Like, truly guys, they are nailing these designs. Check out this bad boy, the Atomic Wrangler sign in all of its glory, and it looks freaking amazing. Now, this isn't the sign that we can actually see in Freeside. That one looks a little different. This is possibly the billboard that is found close to the meat vendors on the freeway to New Vegas. What stands out to me is just how close they are to each other, almost a one-for-one. The tiers, the graffiti, it's really impressive. And does this mean the Fisto appearance is confirmed? I mean, that would be hilarious and it would make sense. We also got another picture of a billboard, and this time it's the Rita Cafe sign, just as impressive as the Atomic Wrangler one.
The cameraman for this one deserves a raise because it looks like they captured it while driving, or more likely as the passenger. I really hope they weren't the one driving. This one actually looks really interesting. I tried to find a similar truck in New Vegas, but I don't actually think one exists. If you guys can find one, let us know. But what it instantly reminded me of was the Vault-Tec truck that is found at the beginning of Fallout 4 during the pre-war segment. There are some pretty big differences though, as you can see. The one from the game is more rounded and has that Jetsons aesthetic, whereas the one we can see on the truck is more like our classical run-of-the-mill boxy delivery truck. It also looks too clean for it to be found in the wasteland in my opinion, so this is probably another flashback scenario where we'll see this truck in some situation. Probably more backstory for the ghoul or maybe even Hank. I guess we'll find out. Very cool regardless. And where there's vehicles, then of course you need fuel, and what better than your local red rocket. Here's some pictures of a red rocket that they've created. What stood out to me isn't all the set pieces, but actually the setting. It could just be another flashback, or they'll just green screen out the trees, but what do these trees remind you guys of? In New Vegas specifically. If you said Jacobstown, then we're on the same wavelength. It just looks cold and the trees are pine trees. You won't find any of that in the Mojave wasteland unless you're high up in the mountains. It could be a flashback, but then look at the vehicles. They're all rusted out and desolate. Clearly, this is taking place in the present. I'm not saying this is a possible hint to Jacobstown, but I'm not saying it isn't either. What do you guys think? Moving on to a fan favorite, we have a partially constructed dinosaur statue that us fans immediately recognized as Dinky, the T-Rex from Novac. I'm guessing Novac likely features a story arc. They're building a ton of set pieces for Novac specifically, which means we'll be seeing a lot of this place. It's so iconic at this point that if you do New Vegas, then of course Novac should be included. Also, this thing looks really good. It's slightly smaller than the one in the game, at least the head, but it seems fairly close. If you're still not convinced this is Novac by the dinosaur, then we have the literal sign. Like, this is clearly the town. It makes me wonder if we're going to get some reference about Boone, or dare I say, Nobark? It has been 15 years though since New Vegas took place, and he was pretty old during then. So I'm guessing he's probably not around anymore, which would be unfortunate. But I mean, all of this looks excellent. The layout, the signs, Dinky, it's actually pretty perfect.
A motel sign reading Royal Hawaiian Motel, presumably a stand-in or a new location unique to the show, has also sprung up in the string of recent photo leaks alongside several Nuka-Cola props and signage indicating the brand's presence is still big in this part of the wasteland. And of course it is, it always has been. The Royal Hawaiian might replace or reference one of New Vegas's lesser-known inns or hotels we wandered across in the Mojave back in the day. Or it could be an entirely new location that lines up with the show's storyline. This motel leak intrigues me though because it doesn't exist in New Vegas as we know it. This could be the stand-in for Novac, by the way. The leaks at this point have gotten out of control, and I don't know if these pictures were taken at the same time as the other sign. I just wanted to point that out. This one is a little weird or concerning. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I don't remember one of the largest casinos in New Vegas having a sign that looks quite like this. The Tops is located near what looks like a strip mall rather than a grand casino row. I wonder if showrunners might prefer a more realistic, grounded cityscape, or if something happened to the original Tops at this point, or maybe CGI will make it more grand? I'm not sure. This could be just a little placeholder or a new billboard as well. It's really difficult to tell what they're planning with this specifically. It definitely looks like the classic Tops logo, so props to that.
Now on to some of the best leaks we've seen to date. We get pictures of the Welcome to New Vegas sign, which looks excellent. Well, both of them actually. The Las Vegas sign pre-war that's been modified, and also the entrance to the actual strip in New Vegas. The entrance gate looks like it was pulled directly from the game. Then we have a few images of the Gomorrah, which is another casino found on the strip. Mostly it's just a sign of the Gomorrah, but once again, they nail this thing almost exactly. And then we get the big boy, the Lucky 38. And we don't just have pictures, we have actual video of it being lit up at night, and it looks incredible. Of course, the stratosphere is missing, but my guess is that they'll CGI that portion in post. On second thought, that's probably what they plan on doing with the Tops as well. It is basically a replica to the game at this point. We also get some shots of the Gomorrah's entrance in the background, and it looks very similar to the game version, but less so than the Lucky 38 in my opinion. Where it's positioned is actually an insane detail. Just look at the game and this picture. I mean, that's crazy. It shows just how much care the showrunners are actually putting into the show. Now, I don't want to overhype this in case it turns out the strip is a disappointment, but I'm thinking it looks really promising so far. Also, the Lucky 38 being lit up means that someone is still running that casino. Is it House, Yes Man, The Courier, maybe someone new? Personally, I hope it's House. I'd love to see him again in a different media setting. But speaking on House, perhaps the most exciting confirmation of all is the return of Mr. House himself. Whether he'll appear through pre-war flashbacks or possibly survived in some form into the show's timeline is still uncertain. I know, I was shocked too. In an interview with Variety, it has been confirmed via showrunners Graham and Geneva that he'll be more important in season 2, with Wagner noting, "Many of our lead characters are Vegas bound. Las Vegas in the world of Fallout is Robert House's town. Robert House will be involved in season 2. So we know he's involved in some way. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's still alive, but I wouldn't bet against it. If he is still alive, I think that means that the Legion ending is all but confirmed to be dead. I'm pretty sure House has to die in that scenario, but I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've done a Legion playthrough, so you guys will have to let me know."
We also have a wishlist location that we spoke about earlier in the video that we would love to see make it into the show, which is Jacobstown. This was home to super mutants and nightkin, many of whom are more than just brutish antagonists. On screen, a snow-capped, dilapidated ski lodge nestled in the mountains would visually stand apart from the arid desert landscapes typical of New Vegas. The idea of a cold, secluded retreat filled with super mutants is inherently unique. Also, with this town, we saw Marcus, who was the mayor of Jacobstown in Fallout New Vegas and first appeared in Fallout 2. Die-hard fans would love to see Marcus again because he's iconic, and having been a sheriff in Broken Hills and an ally of the Vault Dweller Chosen One in previous games. And, a big and, we have not seen any super mutants thus far in the show. That's something that has to be fixed this season, and there are so many ways to go about it. For instance, Jacobstown, the mean son of a bitch that is literally located in Westside, Black Mount with Tabitha, and let's not forget Lily, of course. All of these would be more interesting ways to introduce super mutants than just some random hostile encounter in my opinion. The timeline of Season 2 in New Vegas is also fairly significant to understand. Season 1 of the Fallout TV series wraps up near the end of 2296, which places it about 15 years after the events we played through in Fallout New Vegas set in 2281. That's a big gap, and it raises some exciting questions. What's changed in those 15 years? Did the NCR finally solidify its grip on the Mojave? Or did Caesar's Legion manage to maintain its brutal control? Maybe Vegas carved out its own path entirely, standing independently under Mr. House. Or there could be a scenario where the outcome is much more convoluted. As much as Bethesda loves the NCR, the hype around this faction controlling the Mojave seems less than likely given the fallout of Season 1. Now, I doubt the courier from the game will have a significant impact in Season 2, but if it happens to be Macaulay Culkin, yes, he's also in the new season, then that would be badass. Maybe the courier stuck around all these years and ends up being a cool character. I doubt it though. Don't expect your courier to show up. I don't think Bethesda would want to canonize a character that could appear as any gender or race based on player choices. Maybe we will get a reference though. I think that would satisfy most of us.
Speaking about Macaulay Culkin though, a lot of people are speculating who he might play in the show. My personal guess is that he's most likely just a new character. The showrunners reference that he'll play a crazy genius type of character. Everyone seems to think that he'll be playing Fantastic, the con man that you find in Helios 1 pretending to be a scientist. I mean, who could forget his classic line?
They asked me how well I understood theoretical physics. I said I had a theoretical degree in physics. They said, welcome aboard.
This does sound exactly like something Macaulay would say, honestly, so I can see it. Depending on your stance with the Fallout TV series and with all this potential, it's exciting to think how the story could unfold. Clearly, they plan on canonizing some endings for New Vegas. I mean, what else could they do? I'm sure they'll try to be vague on most details, but there's no way they can cross over the Legion, NCR, or even House. Do you guys hate that, or are you okay with a canon ending? Depending on what it is, I'll hold my opinion until the show airs. It's also a safe bet that the new season will feature Deathclaws, especially since we got that brief cameo in Season 1 with the skull. Co-showrunner Graham Wagner has also hinted at the arrival of the Deathclaw. In an interview with a Wrap, he says, "We wanted to get Deathclaws, but we didn't want to just throw it away. It's such a monumental piece. We want to save something for Season 2 to be able to do it properly, not just add on to the massive world building we already had to do in Season 1. So, Season 2, we're very excited to finally tackle one of the most iconic elements of the games. Maybe some of the characters will run into the old Quarry Junction. That would be intense."
Do you guys remember the famous Hannah Montana actor? He has teased that Norm might just find his way out of Vault 33. If most of the season is taking place in New Vegas, which is looking likely, then we definitely need to see Norm make it out and make his way to Vegas. This could be an interesting little side story. Some other actors that are confirmed for this season are the following. And one of the executive producers, Jonathan Nolan, has made hints at a possible Aaron Paul appearance.
This is my own private domicile and I will not be harassed. Bitch!
It wouldn't surprise me if Paul made it in. He's been part of multiple other projects with these showrunners like Westworld, and I think he'd make a perfect inclusion. Also, I've seen a lot of people hoping Wayne Newton makes a return as Mr. New Vegas. I'm not sure if he is currently still working on projects, but I would love to hear him come back and add a few lines. To be honest, we have nothing concrete about that, but it truly is just a wish list at this point. But what's New Vegas without some Mr. New Vegas? We also kind of wanted to talk about the socio-political climate that might appear in Season 2 and how it correlates to Season 1. First of all, I loved how Season 1 really showcased Vault-Tech's manipulative side and the hidden design of the few vaults that were explored in California. For those of us who have played the games, we've experienced Vault-Tech's non-controlled vaults, and there is always a sinister edge that takes place behind the scenes. It's a less than subtle nod to real-world discussions about corporate ethics and overreach and how big organizations sometimes prioritize profits or hidden agendas over people's well-being under the guise of safety and progress.
The other thing that the TV series did well was lean into the various factions we've all become close to in the game series. We saw communities on the surface, like the remnants of old governments, raider gangs, and local militias jockeying for power, which really demonstrated the tribalism we've seen in the last decade occur in games like New Vegas. This all leads to resource scarcity and power vacuums, all reflections of how societies might reorganize or collapse when centralized systems fail. One of my favorite things was watching these emerging factions form and operate, and seeing how they either try to collaborate or stab each other in the back. It's a classic Fallout scenario where resources are scarce, trust is even scarcer, and everyone has a hidden agenda. Then of course we have the religious or cult-like phenomena. Some story arcs introduce quasi-religious cults or superstitions around technology, vault dwellers, or even pre-war figures. And this highlights how people seek hope or control in desperate times, often latching onto spiritual or dogmatic belief systems. Whether it's worshipping old world artifacts or following charismatic leaders, Season 1 definitely reminded me of how people look for something bigger than themselves when everything else falls apart. which, by the way, Fallout 76 leans heavily into the culty world if that's something you're interested in. As clearly mentioned, according to show updates, Season 2 will jump to New Vegas 15 years after the events of the game. Factions we knew from the game, like the NCR, remnants of Caesar's Legion, maybe a Mr. House cameo on Flashbacks, could appear or be in decline. New Vegas was always about that tension between the NCR's expansion and Caesar's Legion. 15 years after the game's main events, we might see the aftermath of whichever canon outcome the show picks. Are the Mojave tribes more independent now? Did the NCR move fully in, or did a new threat arise from the Legion's ashes? I'm hyped to see that dynamic and curious to see if the Courier is leveraged in any way.
This season could explore the post-war politics of an expanding NCR, local tribal communities, and the gap between the wealthy casinos and the impoverished outskirts. I'd assume that the writers might delve into restoring infrastructure, power imbalances, and widespread corruption among local leaders. If Season 2 is faithful to New Vegas, we'll definitely see commentary on big government versus smaller communities. Plus, the casinos would make for a great metaphor for capitalism running wild, just like Vault Tech was a metaphor for corporate greed in Season 1. This season might mention or build on the Courier characters' choices from the New Vegas game. Even if they're not an on-screen presence, the events from the game will likely shape the landscape. We might hear about the Courier's legend or see references to an independent Vegas or an NCR-ruled Vegas, depending on which ending the show treats as canon. There's a lot of headcanon around which New Vegas ending is quote-unquote official. The showrunners might pick one like House's victory or an NCR takeover, and the plot will revolve around the tension from that outcome. I'm hoping that they keep it relatively vague, however, letting the audience fill in the blanks of the Courier's legend. And this trope has also been done before in previous franchises where the lore of the protagonist makes its way to other corners of the wasteland, like Fallout 2 and Fallout 1 for example. I expect continuing threads about corporate remnants with Vault Tech's power struggles and communities forging alliances or fighting over resources. I would wager we possibly see Vault 21 references or new Vault experiments discovered in the Mojave 2. Fallout is Fallout, and there's always going to be that underlying social commentary about power, greed, loyalty, and survival. And Season 2 might just bring it to the perfect corner of the wasteland.
So when are we actually expecting this thing to come out? Well, Season 2 filming began in November 2024. Because of the show's intensive production requirements, ranging from complex CGI to detailed post-production work, and of course the amazing sets we've previewed, we can likely expect a mid-2026 premiere. Which I know seems weird. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting it to come at the end of this year, but the first season apparently took around 8 months to film and then 13 months later to release. If they follow a similar pattern, then that would put us at our 2026 date. Season 2 also had a delay due to the California fires, so I'm assuming they had a date planned for this year and unfortunately weren't able to meet that, which is obviously understandable. More time to work on the show is better anyways. We want this thing to arrive fully polished and ready to go. Walton Goggins, who plays the Ghoul, had some really interesting stuff to say about this in an interview with Deadline. We're in the middle of filming it right now. We've been at it since November. And I can tell you that I thought Season 1 was extraordinary personally. I was very pleased with it. This blows it out of the water. What these writers have done and the artisans that have come together to tell this story, it's really going to be something. I can't wait for people to see it. We're working really hard to make that happen. Goggins doesn't really mince words in my opinion, so I think we're in for something pretty great.
We could speculate on Season 2 all day, but we didn't want to bring it up too much. We just wanted to give you all the facts we have currently and the leaks on the table. Apparently there are more unfriendly leaks out there that we won't be covering, and who knows if they are even true anyways. Stuff about the plot and other things like that. The last thing I'll bring up though is the Brotherhood of Steel. We still have a lot to learn about how exactly they made this massive comeback and who's leading them. Is it still Maxon? And what the hell they're going to do with the Cold Fusion device? This easily makes them the most powerful faction in the Wasteland at this point. One of the comments we got on a Legion video we put out last week brought up an interesting idea. What if none of the things in New Vegas are canon and something else in the last 15 years actually happened, like the Brotherhood of Steel rolling up and taking control? That could be interesting. I personally don't want to see that because, let's be honest, I think we have had enough time with the Brotherhood and I'd like to see some other factions flourish, but I digress. Anyways, we'd love to talk about this some more, but at this point, I'm just rambling, so if you want us to do a podcast style type of vid speculating on Season 2, let us know. Maybe we could invite some of you guys that comment to come talk about it as well.
Thanks for watching, and remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and we'll see you in the next.